You're listening to all of it on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. In the midst of the dog days of summer, maybe you want to take a break from the city. Why not explore our great state with a good old-fashioned road trip? Look at a map and you just may remember how many regions and destinations there are around the Empire State, from the shores of Long Island to the Hudson Valley, but also the Capital Region and west to the Finger Lakes, not to mention Niagara Falls. Who better to recommend some great ideas for a New York summer road trip than the executive director of the New York State Division of Tourism, Ross Levi? We also took calls from listeners, but since this is an encore presentation, we're not able to take your calls during this segment. Ross kicked things off by sharing why he thinks summer in New York is special.
Summer is a great time to experience the state because we have so much outdoors, and so the weather is just waiting for you, right? And when you're a state like New York, which has such a diversity of world-class attractions and activities all nearby, it's a perfect time to go. We know summer can be an expensive travel season, and while gas is expensive, the idea of getting in your car and driving around the state is still probably one of the most affordable ways that you can see such an incredible, diverse array of world-class attractions and activities all in one place.
Okay, so if you go on a road trip, you could take the highways, but I want to throw a couple routes at you, and you can tell me a little bit about them so you can experience a little bit about what New York can offer. Tell me a little bit about Route 30.
Well, Route 30, in which particular region are you talking about in New York State?
I don't know.
Because I mean, there are so many beautiful scenic byways and national scenic trails across New York State. There's so many to see. We have a number of itineraries on ilovenewyork.com/road trips where you could lay these out. For example, I love the Albany to Niagara Falls trip. It actually starts on US Route 20, which is a designated road of 108 miles that starts in Albany, where you could see, great attractions like the New York State Capitol and the Albany Institute of History and Art, and then go through the rolling hills and countrysides of central New York before getting to Syracuse, where you could do things like go to the Erie Canal Museum. Then just 90 minutes away on Interstate 90, so we think of it as 90 on 90, you could be in Rochester, going to the Strong Museum of Play, which has the National Toy Hall of Fame, or the Eastman Museum, it's named for George Eastman, who founded Kodak. You could tour his home and go to one of the great photographic and film libraries in the world, or go to the Genesee Country Village, which is a living history museum celebrating its 50th year. And then, of course, you finish that great trip taking the Great Lakes Seaway Trail along Lake Ontario to end up at Niagara Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world, and going on Maid of the Mist or the Cave of the Winds. So that's just one particular road trip that you might think about taking.
I was going to ask about going to Niagara Falls, because if you're leaving from our area, what's the right amount of time to plan
Well,
your road trips?
One of the tips I love to remind folks is that you don't necessarily have to drive from the city. If you have your own car, that's certainly something you'd want to do. But if you didn't have your own car, I often recommend taking the train out of the city, whether that's Metro North or LIR or Amtrak. Take that to a station north of New York City that avoids the traffic that you might get getting out of the city, and then you get your rent-a-car at that train station and go out across the state. But if you're leaving from New York City, obviously it depends on traffic, but it can be 6 or 7 hours to traverse the whole state from New York City to Niagara Falls. But that's why we recommend making those great stops along the way. Halfway between New York City and Niagara Falls, for example, is Corning, New York, which is the home of the Corning Museum of Glass, which gives you the history, the art, the science of glassmaking, where you could actually see, they're called gaffers, making masterworks of glass throughout the day. And you even can pay a little extra and do your own glass work to bring home with you.
We are discussing the best places to travel when on a road trip around New York State this summer. My guest is Ross Levi, Executive Director of the New York State Division of Tourism. Let's talk to John. Hi, John. Thanks for taking the time to call all of it.
Thanks for connecting. I'm on my way to Lake Ontario right now.
Nice. Who are you going to see?
The backyard of our lake house is the Salmon River. The front yard is Lake Ontario. It's got an amazing western-facing sunset. Lake Ontario is a hidden gem. It's really an inland sea, and the water and the waves of the lake keep the sea bottom nice and sandy and great underneath your feet. Take a look at a map of upstate New York, compare it to Pennsylvania, and I challenge you to count the lakes. You can do it on one hand in Pennsylvania, but you'll need a big spreadsheet for upstate New York. It's a spectacular place for any vacation.
John, have a great time. Let's talk to Bob, who's calling in from Flushing. Hi, Bob. Thanks for calling. All of it.
Hi there. We have to mention the Baseball Hall of Fame. Cooperstown is a beautiful town, historic buildings, and the Hall of Fame itself is great. And hopefully you catch a Little League game, and it's an awful lot of fun, even if you're not a baseball fan.
Thanks so much for calling in. Yeah, that was one of your stops you had on your list, Ross. Cooperstown. Why is this a must visit for baseball fans?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a mecca. It's on people's bucket list. And the town, as your caller was alluding to, is great. Even if you're not the world's biggest baseball fan, there is a great, there's actually the oldest farmers museum in America in Cooperstown, where you could see blacksmiths and live animals. And there's also a really great museum there as well, which has, for example, busts of our founding fathers. So you can see what they actually looked like. They're made from their life masks. So it's a great all-American town to visit.
Let's talk to Leah in Manhattan. Hi, Leah. Thank you so much for calling All of It. You're on the air.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I am a dog mom. I have a large 70-pound dog, so road trips are what we do. We go to Scribner's every year up in Hunter in the Catskills. Amazing location, extremely dog-friendly, incredible restaurant. And what's really fun is you can go across the street and take the ski lift up to get a scenic view of the mountains, even in the summertime, just across the way at the Hunter Mountain. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you so much for calling in. Let's talk to Matt in Levittown, Long Island. Hey, Matt, thanks for taking the time to call All of It.
Hi, how are you? I have been a fan of the Adirondacks for about 40 years. I took a ride in 1980 up Route 30. You had mentioned 30 before, and just took it right on up and ended up in Lake Placid, which is a beautiful town. If a lot of people I don't think have been there from down here, and I love the Adirondack Mountains. That is a state park. The Adirondacks is a state park. It's a huge state park. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest state park in America. And it's just so pristine, so many lakes, so many mountains, and no billboards and nothing like that. Just lakes and streams and rivers, and I don't know what else to say about it. It's just gorgeous.
Thank you so much for calling in. Yeah, Ross, what did you want to add about the Adirondacks?
Yeah, the Adirondacks are the largest protected lands in the lower 48 states. You could take Yellowstone, the Grand Tetons, the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, they'd all fit within the Adirondacks. And so it is an outdoor lover's paradise for hiking, paddling, exploring. And then within the park are also really great towns like Lake Placid, which is, of course, where the Winter Olympics were held twice. And you could go to those actual Winter Olympic sites. You can go to the Olympic Museum. And Lake George is a beautiful lake up there in the Adirondacks as well, right on the southern part, probably the part of the Adirondacks closest to New York City, where you could go on the Minnehaha, which is the oldest steam paddled boat in the United States. And you could take a beautiful scenic cruise of Lake George.
It's gorgeous up there for camping, too.
Sure is. And the state park system of New York offers some really, if you go to their website and reserve camping, it's a really affordable way to add to your road trip, because you can stay at state park prices, which are very cheap. You can do camping within state parks. And then, of course, the number of wonderful private campgrounds, which have all kinds of great amenities, from activities for kids to pools and splash parks and all kinds of other things.
Let's talk to Jennifer in Fort Washington. Hi, Jennifer. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
So I pitched two ideas, and I don't know which one you want to hear, birding or historic Hudson.
I think we want to hear birding on this show. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So birding, I do an annual trip every year where you head up north and go to starting around Albany, Vischer's Ferry, which is just north of Albany. Saratoga Battlefield you get history and wonderful birding there. Up into the Adirondacks, where we hire this terrific guide who can get you onto Whiteface Mountain, where the very rare and endangered Bicknell's thrush is the only place you can see it here. Boreal chickadees, and lots of blackback woodpecker, grouse. It's one of the Adirondacks is the only place you're going to see any of those birds. And then head west out to making a quick stop at Fort Drum for the upland sandpiper, and then the Watertown area, lots of perch river, lots of black terns, Caspian terns nest there, bitterns, down to Montezuma Wildlife Preserve.
You got a lot planned for us. I appreciate you making the call. Did you want to add anything to that, Ross?
Yeah, I would just mention that New York State, through our Department of Environmental Conservation, has actually an I Love New York birding trail. So if you love birding, there are some itineraries already planned out for you there as well, including in addition to the great ones your callers mentioned.
This is a question for you. This says, does Rochester have any historic sites honoring Frederick Douglass?
Well, certainly his grave site is there, and to go to his resting place is certainly one destination. There is also a number of statues. Unfortunately, there aren't any homes, like a historic home or that kind of thing. But in addition to Frederick Douglass, not too far from Rochester, the Harriet Tubman home is part of the Harriet Tubman National Historic Site, also part of the Finger Lakes in the town of Auburn, and that's a really great destination for anyone who cares about Black history or civil rights history overall.
How about Harry? Let's see if we've got Harry on line 4. Hey, Harry, do you hear me?
Hello, I'm here. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So I just wanted to throw a quick plug for the Bayard Cutting Arboretum, which is in Great River. It's a formerly private home. And actually, it's got this sprawling garden and this beautiful lawn going down to the water. But actually, I just read this online. The gardens were designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, obviously the famous architect of Central Park. But it is a stunning oasis, place of reprieve. Highly recommend anyone get there if you love anything. Garden walks, beautiful homes, yada, yada.
Thanks, Harry. Let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just would love to add the idea of, Long Island in general is, of course, where the Great Gatsby took place. And anyone that's watching The Gilded Age is seeing a lot of those locations referenced. It's a great place for a road trip, like a themed road trip, whether that's about The Gilded Age or The Great Gatsby. So to see some of those beautiful Gold Coast mansions that are restored there, some of which you could stay in overnight. For example, Oheka Castle is actually a beautiful hotel you could stay in overnight.
Let's talk to Patrick, who's calling in from Brooklyn. Hey, Patrick, thanks for taking the time to call all of it.
Hi, yes, I wanted to recommend the Thousand Islands in Clayton, New York, up on the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was a famous summer spot in the early 19th century. Castles built on islands, great fishing, and a wonderful boat museum, one of the best museums of any type I've ever seen in Clayton, the Duke Boat Museum. Terrific place. The Thousand Islands is wonderful.
Thank you so much for calling in. And Ross, you want to tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I always have to remind people that the Thousand Islands isn't just a dressing, it's a place. There's literally 1,900 islands in the beautiful St. Lawrence Seaway. It's actually had some of the best scuba diving in the world because of the fresh water and how clear it is. But yeah, taking one of those scenic boat trips out to one of those island castles and up and down Millionaire's Row, one of those two castles, Singer Castle, you could actually stay in overnight as well.
Your office is in Albany. Give me the pitch for Albany.
Our state capital, right? So, it obviously is our seat of our government. So the opportunity to tour our Capitol building, to go to the New York State Museum, both of which are free. But it's been a important center of colonial history for long, even before there was a United States. As a matter of fact, if fans of Hamilton, when they sing about the Schuyler sisters, that's Albany, and they talk about getting away to the country. And you can tour Schuyler Mansion itself. There are many historical homes here in the capital region, and just north of Albany itself is Saratoga, which is a destination where people have been vacationing for years. It's the home of the oldest sporting venue in America. That's the Saratoga Race Course, where you could see the racing of the thoroughbreds and the Travers. And this year, the last time that the Belmont Stakes will be run at Saratoga before it returns to its refurbished home there on Long Island next year.
We're talking to Ross Levi, Executive Director of the New York State Division of Tourism. We are talking about road trips around the state. Let's talk to Pietro, who's calling in from Jersey City. Hi, Pietro, you're on the air.
Hi, buongiorno. Thank you very much for the opportunity you are giving me. I love your show, of course. I love your program. You are an institution, like they say. But my recommendation is called Magazzino Italian Art, which is an Route 9, number 2700, and is in Cold Spring, New York. So it's a collection of art, contemporary art, including like arte povera, which Italians, they were, very well known about representing arte povera. You have Piero Manzoni, and then you have a Japanese, Denny Murano in Venice. He made those incredible glass vases. But the place, also, the background is somebody from Sardinia, because I was born and raised in Sardinia, in Italy, the beautiful island. And so you will find there also a donkey from Sardinia. There are like all the other interesting things to discover. Then I'm not going to tell you. You're going to find out if you do a deeper search on it.
Grazie, Pietro. Thank you so much for calling in. Ross, I did want to ask about mountains and hikes. If you want to, there's plenty of places you could go. Could you give me 3 recommendations?
Sure. And the thing about hiking is, hiking can be anything from a casual nature trail to scaling a peak, right? So the Adirondacks is the home to New York's great high peaks and our highest mountain, Mount Marcy. So that's obviously a really natural place for people who are experienced and want to do a very serious hike. Similarly, closer to New York City, the Catskills and the Catskill Mountains, some great destinations there. There's actually a program called the Catskill Fire Tower Challenge, where you can scale. Experienced hikers can go to several of the region's remaining fire towers, including at Hunter Mountain or Overlook, and then they get a special patch if they've gone to enough of them. But for the more beginners and for families too, I think it's always good to think about those easier hikes and those entry hikes. We actually have a whole blog at iloveny.com on a beginner's guide to hiking. But one of my favorites is Watkins Glen State Park in the Finger Lakes, because it is a stone path that you follow. Takes only about 45 minutes each direction, so an hour and a half round trip, and you actually have a big reward for that hike because you're going through a gorge path among 19 different waterfalls, some of which you go right behind. And so it changes with every season and is a really great hike no matter what your skill level.
That was my conversation about New York State road trips with Ross Levi, Executive Director of the New York State Division of Tourism. And that is all of it for today. On the show tomorrow, some music. Grace Potter will perform, and Maya will talk about her new album, Retrospect. Until then, I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you. I'll meet you back here next time.